Thank you to the Three Principles Global community for offering these conversations. These webinars are intended to support community conversations on the quotes of Sydney Banks. If you're not familiar with the Three Principles Global community, it is a nonprofit organization committed to disseminating the understanding of the three principles as discovered by Sydney Banks. The three principles point toward the true source of human experience. Insightful realization of the three principles allows anyone to understand how all human experience is created and to glimpse into the very nature of that creative source. These insights uncover our natural resilience, innate feelings of well-being, and our natural connection and access to a universal wisdom found within everyone. The website is 3pgc.org.
Exploring some quotes from Sydney Banks that would possibly support your holiday experience. Since being in the holiday experience does invite a lot of interactions with a lot of people you may not see every day or choose to see every day. And I think it's a great way to see the principles in action. When we're around people, we can really see the principles and actions by what appears to be happening in front of us. So the quote today I thought would be such a great one, and I'll read it a couple of times, and then I'd invite you to reflect on it, just kind of see what comes to mind for you, and then whenever, if you'd like to share about, just share what occurs to you, and we can start the discussion from there. So here's the quote that came, and as I looked in quotes for what would have the resonance for venturing into the holidays. So I'll read it slowly and I'll read it a couple of times. The quote is, "Your thoughts are like the artist's brush. They create a personal picture of the reality you live in." I'll read it again. "Your thoughts are like the artist's brush. They create a personal picture of the reality you live in." I'll even put it in the chat while you reflect on that. Your thoughts are like the artist's brush. They create a personal picture of the reality you live in.
Yeah, I just am trying to think if the thoughts create the reality first, or the reality is a reflection back and our thoughts are manifested.
Could you say more about that? About what you mean by the thoughts are manifested?
If it's kind of a justification of what we see, we create a storyline in our head, or if we enter with a storyline, especially from the past or the future, then we look at the reality and justify that. It may be too much thinking, which came first, the chicken or the egg. I'm not trying to be real intellectual or academic, but I just ask, based on your experience and your reading, do you think that the thoughts are before the reality, or the realities before the thought?
I feel like, just from where I sit, I could, when it becomes a reality, I'll use my definition of reality, is like when it becomes a reality, it's based on my perceptions. If I'm viewing, let me reread the quote, just because I think this one line is so helpful. So it says, "When your thoughts are like the artist's brush, they create a personal picture of the reality you live in." And I think what is so beneficial in that statement is the personal picture of the reality you live in. I think that's when it kind of comes to, is it an impersonal reality you're seeing, or is it a personal reality? And when I say it that way, it's kind of like, am I just seeing tulips and a painted wall? Or am I seeing the tulips that my dear friend sent me, who I love dearly and was so sweet to bring them to me, and it was such a thoughtful and warm thing. You see how that would get personalized versus impersonal, seeing facts. I'll say facts. This is a picture of tulips in a vase. It gets personal when they're my tulips, or when it's my story, to use what you said, like said, to use my story, to really see my story in the thinking. Maybe that's a way of putting it. We have the vehicle of thought that delivers, awareness. I mean, we wouldn't be aware of the tulips without thought. There's a carrier of information called thought, a tool inside us that helps us become aware via this vehicle of thought. And then we also have our personal thinking. Tell me where, if anywhere, that kind of traveled with you, or what that landed inside you.
Well, I think the key is the storyline and the personal thing rather than be objective. If there's value or angst or, some intensity, there has to be an invested storyline. And, if you just see it for what it is, then you're not invested in it with a storyline. And I think it's a lot easier to recognize it as his thought. I guess tying it to feelings, there's less charge, less intensity. It's more neutral. There's no my.
Exactly. And I think that other, I don't know the direct quote of Sydney Banks, but as human beings, if we could see more fully the role of thought in every moment, it would be another way of really waking us up to how much thought is going on inside all the time on the personal level, where it might just look like that's how life is, but it's like it's I think that's where the deepening can keep happening, seeing the role of thought in every moment and everything. I think the deepening of how many perceptions we carry.
I think the flowers are a good example, actually, because the flowers are just there. However, what I think about the flowers, that's my personal picture of the reality I live in. So that's what came to mind as you were talking about that. Like, I've been seeing that for myself as well. It's like there's so many areas in my life where I don't recognize its font. It's like, oh, that's how life is, or this person isn't, or I react to a certain situation in a certain way. But that too is thought. That's what I've come to realize more and more.
That's a perfect example too of what I just mentioned about seeing the role of thought more and more and more, just seeing the role of thought. And that's a perfect example, because I have a personal relationship with these flowers. So you're like, okay, here's another American that equates the tulips to the Netherlands, So yeah, but the truth is, they're just tulips in a picture,
Hi.
Hi.
That just reminded me of Sid Banks saying thought is where the power is, and we are the thinkers. People don't see it like it's so much thought that is creating our reality. And when you can see it, it's kind of just a easier, better way to live your life.
Or that part where you really start to see how much of what you're seeing is in your side of the street.
Yeah. or like how much your emotions and your feelings are created by your thinking too.
100%. 100%. That's what I love about the I heard somebody say one time that the reality you see is a product of your thought, no exceptions. You know, and when you get emotionally activated about something, and especially if you're trying to recruit troops to understand your side, you know, your side being, I'm sure it's the right side and somebody's on the wrong side. Whenever you start to see that, you realize that no exceptions. It almost kind of gobsmacks me, like, wait a minute, all of this that I'm disturbed by is a product of my thinking, no exceptions.
Yeah.
No exceptions. It's like so solid, except you don't have anything to grab onto other than it's true. At some level, you know it's true.
I remember I wrote down it's not what you think, it's the fact that we think. And once you see the power of thought, your life won't be the same again. Because that was so life-changing for me from Sid.
Mm-hmm. Same for me, family, because it's like I was in a conversation one time and it was like, oh, it's not the power of positive thinking. You know what I mean? You think, okay, if I can just clean up in the beginning, you go, if I could just clean up what's in my head, it'll all be better. And then it was like, just like you said, it's not that I'm thinking, stinking thinking. It's not that I could have positive thinking. It's the simple fact I'm thinking, and thinking too much on anything is not to my benefit.
No, it's not good.
It's not to my benefit. It's a heavy load, no matter what I'm thinking about. And I was like, wow, just seeing that I'm thinking and how much is going on up there.
It's such a real eye-opener for me to just struggle for so many years with bad anxiety and panic attacks, and then to see that my emotions was coming from my thinking, and a lot of the things that I thought was going to happen or a symptom that would come on was just love letters and like, hey, you got to get out of your head. You're in too much of your own thoughts.
But that's so life-changing. It sounds so simple, but it's a game changer for how much, I don't know how much hopefulness comes in, or even how much easier the ride can be.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's just not something I have to concern myself with. And also the part about everything that I was making up ahead of time. I don't know about your predictions, but mine were never accurate.
No, they usually never happened at all.
Yes, usually none of it ever happened at all, you know, and no. Yeah.
Isn't it beautiful now to see how caught up you could get yourself? You know, you can get so caught up and just, I don't know.
Of running scenarios, just running scenarios, or even the innocence of ruminating. I think the innocence of ruminating, like you don't even know you're ruminating until you're like, why is that still on my mind? I wasn't even aware it was on my mind, but you can just see how you're having these repeat topics come back again, and rinse and repeat. And you're like, well, I wouldn't even call that ruminating, but anything that rinses and repeats, I'm ruminating on.
Yeah. I had a problem with rumination for a long time. I still kind of get it there sometimes.
I think depending on how hot of a topic it is for you in your world, the grip is sometimes than others. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And that it continues. It really does continue to kind of unwrap itself, or, you know, I always thought about, like, if you got a knot in a chain on a necklace, you know, and the more you pull on that chain, the knot just doesn't come out, but it's like, wait a minute, let me just start loosening this up. And then it kind of unravels and you can get the knot out of the chain. But I think that bearing down on our thinking is like tightening that knot. And then letting go of some of the thinking, it just starts to loosen that knot and then it can come unwound.
Yeah, I love that. I
Oh,
listened to a coach call last night and
Uh-huh.
they said that it's kind of like water. You know, you got your really good water and then sometimes it can get contaminated or dirty or poisoned. And it's just like our thoughts.
Yeah. I think in that I love coming back to it's all so innocent, whether
Yeah.
you don't even see that fear has contaminated your thinking, and you don't even see it's when you wake up to like it's nothing. I'm saying nothing neutral about this. It's like, oh, okay, I'm drowning in the personal aspect of it.
Yeah, what I was planning to ask again was, in light of the holiday season, when people get together, especially with family and dear friends, we do share stories. And those of us that have had exposure to the three principles can look at the innocence. The question is more of a technique. How can you allow them their space and not dismiss them, and kind of, try to steer the conversation away from their personal investment of their story, not to get hooked into it, but how do you do that dance so that there's the element of respect and that you're deeply listening and you're not dismissing them.
In that place of when that happens, sometimes I'm like, I have to check and go, am I trying to control how much I think that it's time for them to stop and they don't? So I don't know if, like, okay, I've kind of overserved on your stories here. I'm ready to move on. That's just what comes to me. I don't know what's coming to you when that's happening. Could you tell more about what's happening for you when that's going on at the table?
No, I think that's a wonderful way of saying it. It's not allowing anyone to be dominant, but how to do it in an appropriate way so you're not dismissive, or from their perspective, because they're really invested in their thoughts, that you're not dismissing them. Other people may get glimpses of, well, is it all about you? And, there are other people at the table. How do you do that gracefully, with giving everyone a little space at the table?
Are you hosting? Or are you a guest?
Probably neither this year. I don't know. It's irrelevant to what we're doing. I mean, I have no angst over it, but I just know that, there may be some situations that will arise, and it's more of a skill building question.
Oh, okay.
I'm not hung up in any of it. I'm just thinking ahead, if I can. And the reason we come on these calls for grounding is, I want to polish my skills, so to speak.
I think in that place, if we really, I think we can kind of start to value and appreciate separate realities and listening to them about knowing that each person at the table is living in a thought created reality of their own. And I think a lot of times, if we don't have it on our mind that everybody needs to take a turn at the table, it can kind of move. And, this is kind of a sidebar to that, but sometimes in those situations, somebody gets very positioned on something. And You know, I always like it when a host or a hostess kind of sets the ground rules of what topics are off the table and what we're here to enjoy. Is, you know, but that's just my personal preference. But I like it too, like when I can sit and listen to a glimpse or a window into their reality and how they see things, knowing that their reality is very different from mine. And so when those certain people can take a position, I really see what's most helpful for me is, this is a pat answer I love to use because it keeps me on my side of the street, is you could be right. I'm not saying they are right, but I love that line about you could be right. In their own reality, they are right. In their reality, they have the right to see the world through their lens on life. And in the innocence, that's just what they're seeing. Now, I don't know. It does seem like when you go to social events that I don't know if you would call it like the same set of characters show up, you know, the quiet ones, the loud ones, but that's even my thinking I'm bringing to the situation ahead of time, that the cast of characters are going to be around the table and I'm not being present to just what's happening at the table. I've already kind of contaminated a clear space of what's happening or what could happen. And that would be the role of my thinking in even looking at the situation, you know, versus just entering into a very clean, clear situation and responding in the moment of what's happening right then and there. That I love that about the principles too, and about the role of thought and consciousness and mind, is I don't need an agenda. I find that more and more and more, I don't need an agenda or a strategy. If I can just be present to what's going on, something occurs to me. And that what occurs to me, maybe I just get up from the table. I don't know. I'm not even projecting what that would be, but even come into the situation, whether it's the people in the situation or the loaded occasion of the situation, about letting all that go too, because that would be me carrying thought into the moment.
Yeah, I like what you said about you could be right. And if someone is domineering and there's someone that's more submissive within the family, just segueing by saying, and I'm also interested in. And so that keeps established the separate realities and honors them. It's not, we're not in here to persecute, we're here to listen and allow. And, acknowledging that they could be right, but I'm also interested in whatever, so that, that doesn't squash the other person like a bug, which may be the intent of someone who's totally fixated in their separate reality.
5 minutes ago, you didn't have that. And that a new thought, fresh thinking came in and was delivered to you by just looking in that direction. And that it can happen, that's the way it's happening in real time, just in this conversation. So of course it's going to happen. If the less you have on your mind, all of us, the less we have on our mind when we go into these situations, with this understanding, of that every single person is living in a reality created by their thoughts, their perceptions, their judgments, their assessments, whatever you want to call them, it's all thinking. That every single person is living in a reality created by that. And to me, that's huge leverage, just being with other people. And they're absolutely entitled to their own reality and their own experience of life. It exists anyway. I might as well get on board with it. I don't have to agree with their reality, but they're definitely entitled to their own reality and how they see things.
Yeah, I think using the word "and" allows for all these realities to exist. Don't need to believe in them, you know, or stand for them, just that they are, and that it is thinking, and it's all okay. And I don't need to persecute or defend it. I just allow, because in that allowing space, the wisdom will come. I'm not fixated on my thoughts.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I really do appreciate that, Bruce, because if there's 7.5 billion people on the planet, plus or minus, there's 7.5 billion realities. Because no two of those people, even if they're identical twins, have not walked in each other's shoes and had the exact same experience at the exact same moment. So I don't even need to fight that. But they can't not have their own experience of life. And it doesn't require anything of me, because I sit in my reality of what I believe I'm seeing at that moment anyway. So it's like they can't change it. No campaign in the world can change my personal thinking. Fundamentally, you know what I mean? I always kind of make a joke like, nobody can come in here and convince me to eat a food I don't like. You can't make me like it. I don't care what it is. If I don't like it, you can't make me like it. You know, all the talk in the world was like, okay, let's move on. We don't need to like the same thing.
Yeah, the sun doesn't need to GPS me, so it just does its thing.
And I don't need to worry if it's going to be coming from the east and setting in the west either. I can take that off my mind. That's one less thing I need to have on my mind. Where is it going to come from? Where is it? Is it going to come up tomorrow? Do I need to worry about that? Nah, it seems to be. I always kind of laugh going, if it's not coming up in the east, we've all got bigger problems than that. So I don't need to worry about it. We may not be here to even witness it if it's not coming up in the east. I don't know.
I heard this quotation that's such a great reminder that you are the you version of wisdom, and you'll know what to do in the moment rather than strategizing out 3 weeks in advance, kind of thing. But I wanted to talk about this notion of separate realities. There's a individual living with me right now temporarily, and we're working with a social worker to get her assisted living because she has dementia. And so I spent 4 hours with her on Friday afternoon to go to get they call it a functional assessment. They have to assess her capacity to, decide what kind of living arrangement she needs. And it started with she couldn't find her healthcare card, and then we went to one clinic, they wouldn't fill out the form. We went to another clinic, they weren't open for another hour. We finally get in the clinic, the doctor's not going to be there for another half hour. Finally get to see the doctor, kind of get everything in motion. She actually does manage to get a primary care doctor while we're there, and that's and so like the next morning she says to me, she goes, I'm going to go down to that senior center and see if they can, they can get a doctor to sign this form for me. And I just went like, and even though I just stayed calm, for the whole afternoon. The next day is like, I just kind of lost it. It's like, where were you? Like, where were you those 4 hours we were driving around and waiting and talking to people? And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And somebody doesn't have to have dementia to not recall something. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think even how do we hold the innocence when, really, how do we hold their innocence when something like that happens? How do we hold their inness? Practice.
This is my next level of understanding.
And we'll get many more opportunities to deepen our understanding. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's no end of this road, I don't think, when it comes to gaining more understanding, it's like all me included, a work in process. I'll even say a work in process. I don't know about progress, but I'll say a work in process.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Gosh. Sounds like you're really extending your generosity. That's a beautiful thing.
and sometimes I'm okay with it and sometimes I'm not. And that happens too because of my thinking. Yeah.
Well, I think, and it goes back to just human frailty about, we don't have to make a lot about fluctuation of my, just a fluctuation. I'll call it even mood, just a fluctuation of my mood or how my fluctuation in mindset as things happen.
Yeah.
I know it's going to fluctuate. So I don't even have to hold a judgment about the fluctuation. It's going to happen with me or without me.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Yeah.
You can't, I mean, as a human frailty, you can't not have fluctuation of mood or fluctuations in consciousness, you just can't not. So
yeah, just be at peace with that too.
Be at peace with that too,
Yeah.
Well, that part about, you can see somebody, I've always thought it's so fascinating. You can be around somebody and just adore them. And the next time you're around them, they just grate on your nerves, and it's like, even if the thought's not conscious, it's like, again, it's on my side of the street. I don't need to even venture into what am I thinking about them. It's just, I just know I'm at a lower level of consciousness or a lower mood because everything they do is a problem. So what's the consistent? It's just the inconsistency of my mindset, my consciousness, my mood, my level of well-being, whatever you want to call, my level of understanding, whatever you want to call it.
Good. Thank you.
You bet. That's why that no exceptions at my thinking is painting a reality from which I'm witnessing, judging, assessing, and that when we were talking about this quote about they create a personal picture of the reality. I'm going to say personal picture, the personal picture of the reality I'm in. I'm in. No exceptions. And I don't have to take any of it seriously. I think that's one of the most liberating things of this understanding is I don't have to take anything, I think, seriously. To be able to see that as an option, I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
I used to, I would take it also seriously, but God, just knowing I don't have to, it's like, that feels very light to me, just the option. I don't have to do anything with that, whatever that was that came into my head.
Yeah, I find that over time I've got I still have lots of opinions, but I'm voicing them less. Which is very helpful in relationships.
Yeah, it's like, it's almost like I know I'm gonna have a mind that generates judgments, assessments, and thoughts, rights and wrongs, goods and bads, all that, but it's like, and I don't have to take any of it seriously.
Yes, I don't let my inside voice become my outside voice.
It's something like I don't know if it's a dating app or something like that, and somebody's on the first date and the female is oh my God, he's not husband material, all this kind of, you can hear her mind is going, and then all of a sudden the caption kind of comes in and says, did you know you were thinking out loud? So all of the personal thinking about this date was like, do you know you're thinking out loud? Is like, to your point. It's like, don't think out loud. It could cost you a great first date. I think it's something like the dating app.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah, that's very cute.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I even like that too. Like sometimes when my mind gets quite certain about something, but oh, you could be right. And then I also like the idea inside myself of going, no, you could be wrong. So it softens, blurs the edges a little bit when my mind is really thinking it is tangible, carved in stone. It's like, you could be wrong. It's like, and of course that part that wants to be right is like, oh yeah, we'll wait and see it. More times than not, it's wrong. It's off the mark.
Yeah.
I saw the funniest thing the other day. I don't know where I saw it, but another thing I saw was so funny. And it was, Keanu Reeves, the actor, he's like, he is so centered in wanting to live in a peaceful existence. They kind of, he played the Buddha, I mean, he's always trying to live in a very peaceful existence. And the comment was like, if somebody wants to argue with me that 1 + 1 = 5, I say, great, and hope you have a great life. You're like, I'm not arguing with him. I'm not going to give up my peace for anybody that's trying to. And I thought that was so great. Going, what are you willing to give up your peace over?
I like the word forfeit your peace.
Yeah.
In order to be right. That's a good one.
It really looks like a currency to me at that point.
Yeah, it's the price you pay.
Yeah, and I'm not, and and the price you pay for what, like the peace that I live in, or the feeling I live in, or the sense of well-being I live in. Is it worth it?
I guess the ego thinks so from time to time.
Oh, you betcha. Oh, you
Yeah.
betcha. It's like, can I quit riding shotgun and get back in the driver's seat? It definitely wants to take the wheel.
The whole concept of ego is fascinating because it's a fabrication, and yet it seems to have some substance or sense of itself or authority, or it's a fascinating concept.
Mm-hmm. It's a big enough concept where enough people have bought into it to make it more than thought in the moment. To make it more than thought in the moment.
Yeah.
Think how many books have been written on ego? How many problems need to be solved around ego?
Yeah, I was at a business meeting on Friday morning, and the gentleman was showing a model for goal setting, and he said something about, and everybody agrees about the inner child thing, right? And I went like, he goes, one person in the room doesn't agree with that. There's so much that's come from the world of psychology that's given substance and definition and parameters and to all these concepts. And then it's best to convince us that's how it all works.
Yeah. Yes. And that, I think it was always like, all these concepts have taken not literally, but has taken form. And somehow it looks like that has to be addressed before something else needs to happen, or that needs to be, and it's like, no. It really looks like it's something. It's a formidable presence, like a roadblock that has to be navigated to move beyond. And it's like, no.
All those tips and tricks and tools and techniques and
Everything that got us here, everything that we kind of explored on our way to here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, done that.
Yeah, been there, done that. Absolutely. Got many a t-shirt. And
yeah, I'm doing a little social media series this week on imposter syndrome, and kind of addressing all of those things that aren't the answer, or don't work, or aren't the underlying issue, and I'm kind of having fun with it. Like
And aren't those great for your own exploration, for your own inquiry of just kind of looking at it just to
Yeah.
see what you can see?
Yeah. First of all, I needed more degrees. Didn't have enough degrees and diplomas, designations.
Same.
Right.
Here.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. And then, oh, it's okay. That wasn't it. Okay. So now maybe I need, more counseling and coaching and therapy and feel my feelings and talk about my thoughts, explore my early life, list all my accomplishments. Well, that didn't work.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I'm
I could
laughing.
see this kind of yeah, rolling through the week. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think too, it's like that part that really seeing thinking is what created it as a problem in the first place. It's like I love that little caveat these days. It comes to mind to me, like when my mind grabs something and the thinking starts to pick up, and wisdom or intuition, whatever you want to call it, it just said one day, it's like, do we really need to make a problem out of that? And I'm like, I don't guess so. Let's move on, because I've seen when it gets the designation is back to this about a personal picture. When it goes to the personal picture is me seeing it as a problem. It's like, well, wait a minute. That has me all over it. Do we really need to make this a problem? At first I didn't realize there was an option not to make it a problem. It was a problem. I was so sold. I drank the Kool-Aid on whatever was falling head first into my thinking. And it's, of course, it's a problem that needs to be solved. It's like, really?
I've learned with the 3 principles not to solve a problem when I'm low.
Yes. I think that should be in page 1 of the handbook.
I would always just be awful. Like, I can't go to sleep until it's solved. And now I'm going to go to sleep. I'm not going to be able to figure out the answers,
Yes. Yes. I felt that too, feeling like, like I don't know if you ever heard this, but I mean, I remember like being a kid and people would be like, oh, never go to bed mad. And it's like, stay up and duke it out, figure it out. And now when you bump into the principals, you're like, that's the worst thing you could do. Go take a rest, clear your mind, get an insight or reset and come back fresh. You know what I mean? It's like, what's the demise of a relationship? Keep slugging it out at a low mood and try to look for a high mood solution.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. Back off, back away,
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, I may not know what to do, but I know doing nothing is my best solution, best offer right now. Just sit on my hands and do nothing. It reduces damage control so much.
It does. And then you don't say anything you don't mean during that low mood either.
There's nothing to clean up, you just breathe through it. Or what is it? Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Do whatever you need to do. Just, I know now's not a good time to engage or make a choice or act out or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, guys, our time is already up. I just can't believe it. And I'm so grateful for you guys to make time in your schedule to come and share and be in these conversations. I really appreciate it. It's so great to see your faces. And for the first time and repeat, it's just delightful always.
Thank you very much for listening. There are abundant resources to learn more through the 3PGC website. You can also learn more by visiting my YouTube channel or my podcast, Connected Living, Truths and Understandings for the Business of Life.